Welcome back, Queen, to another episode of The Creatress of Freedom. I am so excited to be dropping on in with you today. It's a really special episode today. It's a conversation that definitely needs to be had. And if you are new, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to have you here. So thank you for taking some time out of your day to tune on into today's episode. If you're an OG, oh my gosh, you know I love you. Thank you so much for showing up once again. Oh, I'm actually really, really excited for today's conversation. And today's conversation was sparked because I had just a conversation with a dear sister who has actually been on my podcast before. So this is my beautiful dear sister from Sunshine Coast. And we were just having a beautiful catch up yesterday, and we just started talking about just all things, really, all things. And one of the things that came up was she actually asked me a really vulnerable question, and I was more than happy to answer it. And as we finished this conversation, we both said, wow, this is a really powerful and important topic. And I think that we're not alone in this conversation. And we said that we think it needed to be a podcast episode because we know that it can be really supportive for, other women that maybe don't feel like they have a voice yet to be able to talk onto this topic. So literally we're like, right, within 24 hours we had the call booked to do a podcast episode. So I'm so excited to delve into today's topic, and I want to bring on my beautiful friend Claire, my beautiful sister. Claire, welcome, babe, to the Creatress of Freedom podcast, and thank you for having this conversation with me today.
Thank you so much for having me on your podcast, and it's an absolute honor. That conversation last night was magical, so thank you for inviting me again back today to discuss it in a little bit more detail.
I love that. I love that so much. Oh, my pleasure. I really feel like this conversation that we're going to have today is going to be really, really supportive for so many women. After we were chatting yesterday, like my mind was thinking about just different scenarios and just different situations where, this has been very real for a lot of people. And so women in business, I think this is a really important topic. And I think just women, even in general, I think it's a really important topic. So would you like to, I feel like we'll start it off with the question that maybe you asked me yesterday.
Yes.
Do you want to start? Let's start there so that we can kind of go through the scene, I guess, and
Yes.
get the conversation started from there. So what was the question that you asked me yesterday?
So yesterday I asked you, when you see a mother and a baby hugging and having this really beautiful, sacred moment, do you ever feel like you're missing out, or do you feel like you could possibly ever in the future feel like you would regret not doing that? Or that was basically my question.
Yeah, and the question was a really powerful question because I felt like I had 50,000 answers to it. Like, honestly, I think I did have 50,000 answers. And it was really in regards to having a child is really what it was like, the context of the conversation, because we've had many conversations about this, about, do I want to have children?
Yes.
What does that look like? And I have always, from a young age, said that I wanted to have children, like that was like the dream. I thought I'd be married and 2 kids by the time I was 25. Like that was my happy ever after.
Yeah.
And I'm 35, not married and no kids, far from what I thought I was going to have. But I think, I've had a really like a beautiful journey. And if I had to answer like the question, like right here, right now, I would say no, that I don't want to have children. And, I think this was the conversation that we were like getting into, like, would you have the regrets about that?
Yeah.
Do you feel the guilt about that as well?
Yes.
Like how do you, I think the follow-up question that you asked me was like, how do you let go of like society's jacket, of like what we're supposed to do as women?
Yeah, ingrained.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think my answer to you straight up was that I can look at a mother and daughter and think that's really beautiful, but I don't feel that Oh my gosh, that's what I need to have. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I need that. If
Mm-hmm.
anything, what I probably do, I didn't tell you this yesterday, but if anything, probably what I do is I don't look at it from that aspect, but I
Mm-hmm.
look at it from my relationship to my mum, and
Mm-hmm.
I feel sad about that
Mm-hmm.
because I don't have that relationship with my mum. So I probably don't necessarily get don't think too much about like the mother with the baby,
Mm-hmm.
but the adult daughter with the mother, that
Yes.
probably plays on my heart more because
Yes.
I'm like, oh, I never got to do that. I never will get to do that. I'll never get to have that, you know, go and have lunch with my mum, or
Mm-hmm.
like go and do some shopping. So that
Mm-hmm.
probably, in a mother-daughter situation, that probably plays more on my heart than like the actual physical baby. So
Yeah.
yeah, but like I think what I said to you yesterday as well, like I I would never say never either. Like, I might meet the love of my life, and like that just might be the season that we're in, and like that just might be the next thing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like this just feels so perfect. This is what we have to do, like and so I would be open to that. But
Yes.
right here, right now, like I would say no.
Yeah.
I don't want to have children.
Yeah.
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 What about
Yeah.
you?
And for me, I am very 50-50. This is why I was asking you the question, because I feel like I don't have that pull. I don't have that desire that's like, you need to do this. And a lot of me, I was thinking about it this morning, and I was thinking of the reasons why. And there's quite a lot of reasons why. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'll start off with the external things first, and it's
Mm-hmm.
probably, just what people say. 50% say, oh my God, it's the best thing I ever did. And then 50% say, it's so hard, it's horrible. Like, think about it before you do it. Your life's going to change, your body's going to change, your mentality is going to change. Like, even you think like the baby blues and mental health, and a bunch of things happen to you externally as well. And then the what we were saying last night about the lineage and about just culture and being women in general. It's like, if you don't have a baby, what are you even alive for? Is kind of like what the
Yes.
feeling I get sometimes is like, if you don't have a kid, well, you're just ending it, it's just done and your blood is off the earth. And it's like, is that,
Mm-hmm.
I struggle with that because I'm a spiritual being. So I struggle with the divine masculine, the feminine. And it's like, I understand those two come together to create a union. But like, I personally don't have this driving force of like, I'm going to have kids. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's a bit of a struggle in my mind back and forward. And I do have a partner that wants kids really badly. And I've thought about it, and I would, yeah, it's very hard, when you're in a position where
Mm-hmm.
somebody desperately wants them. And then you're like, I have a lot of set requirements before I could even possibly think about it. For me, I need like
Mm.
stability, I need land, I need money, I need finances. I know my mum grew up as a single mum for part of her life, and no money. It was really hard. And just seeing the struggle, my mum always said, you were the best thing ever. You're the biggest blessing of my life. And so
Mm.
that's also one part of it, is like, I don't want to miss out on that blessing if that really is, what people say, and having that beautiful connection and having a connection that goes beyond something that I've ever experienced, because they say, a mother-daughter connection is something amazing,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not
Mm-hmm.
always the case, and
Mm-hmm.
I've also struggled with mental health issues and things like that. So that also comes into my mind. I've had OCD and a bunch of different things where I just think my mental stability is just very, it's manageable how it is now with what I have. But I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
adding more things into it, would I be a good mother? So there's a lot of different aspects that I think about when it comes to that question.
Mm.
A lot.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the mental health like topic is
Yes.
a really important conversation.
Yeah.
I actually have a client, and I have asked her to come on and do a podcast episode, which she's really happy to do because mental health has been something that she has really struggled with.
Yeah.
And a big part of that was having children.
Yeah.
And, she actually, I don't know if it was in one of our calls or in one of our, like in our Slack channel, but she said, I actually had a moment and I said to my husband the other week, I regret having children. I wish I never had them. And she said, like, I don't, now afterwards, like, that's not my truth, but oh my God, was it my truth in that moment? And like, they changed my fucking life. Like,
Yeah.
they changed my life. And I'm not sure if it's for the better. Like,
Yeah.
if I'm being really honest. And I'm like, yeah, like, that's okay. Like,
Yeah.
you're allowed to say that. You're like, they
Exactly.
literally did change your life. Like,
Yeah.
you sacrificed a lot of things. And,
Yes.
I think talking about what you were sharing before with like all the external things, I 100% agree with you. Like, there is a
Mhm.
lot of factors that does happen more so for the woman than for the man.
Yeah.
I truly do believe that. And I think I even said to you yesterday, um, for me, like, it's taken me so fucking long to love
Yeah.
my body, like,
Mhm.
to love my body, like, unconditionally. And I still have moments where I still am like, pick myself apart. And,
Yeah.
like, I still go through that battle on a daily process.
Yes.
And one thing that I think that I'm scared about is having a baby, knowing that my body's going to majorly change, and
Mhm.
then am I gonna fucking hate my body, and then
Mhm.
am I gonna resent the child? Like,
Mhm.
and that to me is like, that's not fair on the kid that I've like brought
Exactly.
my own issues into this world. And like, what if I don't love my body as it's changing? Like, while the baby's in the womb space, like, as both of us being spiritual beings, we understand that just because the baby is an earth side doesn't mean that it's not starting to build its beliefs and feelings and, emotions and all of that. It's like, it's
Yes.
doing that in your womb space. So whatever
Exactly.
is happening in the womb space is what they get brought into this world with.
Yes.
So I think like that is another big factor as well, as to, like, I feel like I would really, if I was to go down that path, I think I would really need some support in like actually helping me like really love my body and not hold resentment towards the
Exactly.
child. I mean, I don't know, like, we're playing in the what ifs game, right? Like,
Yes.
it might be totally fine. It might be, I
E-
might have a whole new relationship with my body for what it can do. But
Exactly.
I'm just very aware of my shadow.
Yes.
And I think that we like have to be, like, we have to talk about those things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think as well, like the way that society is and how we raise children is also something that wants me to hold off, because I don't feel
Mm.
like we're supposed to be, in one house, just the mother doing everything, and obviously the father helps, but it's like it's all up to the mother. And they say
Mm.
it takes a village to raise a child, and I truly believe that. And I don't have a
Yeah.
village to help raise my child right now.
Mm.
So that also stops me. I can't just trust that I could give my baby to somebody and it would be safe to be looked after and not hurt, or, the world's a crazy world. So I would be constantly on edge all the time thinking. And then it's like
Mm.
that for like 21 years until they're old enough for you to be like, okay, their brain is developed. Now you can go off into the world and it's your job to keep yourself safe. I've done what I can do. So
Mm.
it seems like a lot of stress.
Pressure.
And like
I know.
being alone as well. And like, yeah, if you were just living in suburbia doing this, I really just feel like I couldn't do that. But I feel like
Mm.
if, yeah, this is why I'm so 50-50, because if I had that community, if I had like a land and I had all of these things that would help me, and all I had to do was just raise this beautiful baby, I could do that.
Mm-hmm.
I could, but that's not
Mm-hmm.
reality. It's not
Yeah.
reality. There's other things
Mm-hmm.
that I have to do. And it's like
Mm-hmm.
balancing all of those things that is what gives me this apprehension on, is it the right thing? Is it not the right thing? And also another thing that I had a revelation around is when I was at High Spirits doing my Kahuna level 3, we did the pregnancy massage and we were learning all about pregnant women and doing the baby. And I had this real resistance against touching the babies. I didn't want to touch the pregnant women. I was like, oh, and it made me cry. And I was like, I don't want to do it. I had no real experience with babies before either. I haven't been around a lot of babies, and um, yeah, it was just never my thing. And so I was actually crying, and it was a big deal for me to have to massage this one with the baby, because I didn't want to hurt the baby. I didn't want to do the wrong thing. It seemed so sensitive, and I didn't know how hard you can push on a baby.
Mm-hmm.
And then through this process, I came to realize that the reason why I didn't want kids, very subconscious, was I didn't feel like a man could support me enough or
Mm-hmm.
be a good enough father to actually genuinely make me feel and my body feel safe, because it's not just up here, it's
Mm-hmm.
also the body, right? The body goes, oh, no, no, no babies. It's holding everything in here. And
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah, I just felt like, no man that I've seen so far has been able to step up to the level of what I needed to feel comfortable enough to have a baby.
Mm-hmm.
My partner now, he is amazing and he is absolutely trying his best. And we are
Mm-hmm.
working through all of these things to get there in the end. But,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just being honest with right now how I felt. And this was a few
Mm-hmm.
years ago as well, actually before I met him. But yeah, so it was
Mm-hmm.
also not being held and safe enough to feel like my body could actually give birth.
Yeah, I think the key word there is safe. Like
Safety.
feeling safe
Safe.
in that you have this person like around you that's like got your back, that's like
Exactly.
it's gonna do life,
Hmm.
ride or die kind of thing. And
Exactly.
um I think, with Troy, with my ex,
Hmm.
because we were together for like 7 years, and I was a stepmom for 7 years, and we weren't just the casual weekend step parent. Me, he was the dad, obviously.
Yes.
We were like very hands on. They were with us for 2 weeks, and then they were with their mum for 2 weeks, and then they were back with us for 2 weeks, and so we like our life very much fitted in with their life. It wasn't just fun stuff that happened on the weekends because they
Yeah.
came every second weekend. We were doing school, we were doing after school activities and all of that stuff. And so I remember having a conversation with him when we first got together, because I was like I wanted to have children, right? That was something that I thought. I separated from my ex prior to that because I wanted to have children, and he knew that from day one. But
Hmm.
as we got deeper into our relationship after 5 years, in an argument, he said to me, well, I don't even want to have children. And I was like, what the
Yeah.
fuck? Like, we had just bought a house, like I
Hmm.
just set up my home salon, like, that we were progressing to, like, that was the next thing. And I think that's, looking back, I can see that he perhaps never thought that that day was going to come. But as we started, putting all the things in place, I think reality started to kick in,
Yeah.
and it was like, well, shit, like this is going to be the next thing she wants. And I'm not sure that I actually really want to do that and give her that. He also had children to a previous marriage as
Hmm.
well. And so, like, that was a deal breaker for me. Like, that was a non negotiable. So we
Yeah.
separated, we sold our house because I was like, well, if you don't want to have children, well, then, like, what are we doing? Because I
Yeah.
want to have children. Like, I'm not going to go and waste anymore. I've just done 5 years with you. You knew that I wanted to have children.
Hmm.
So, like, that was an absolute deal breaker with him. And then I met Troy, had that conversation with him. He was 12 years older than me. And
Yes.
so he said to me that he was happy to, like, honor that, but he also gave me a time frame. And so he said
Hmm.
that I needed to decide before he was 40,
Yeah.
because he didn't want to be an old dad. And so I was like, okay, that's fine. Like, you're young and you're in love, and you're like, you just kind of get a little bit caught up in the moment. You're like, oh, that's ages away. Like, in hindsight, it really wasn't that far away. And so I knew that I had a window to make a decision.
Yeah.
And that window, so I met him when he was 37.
Hmm.
So, there was only a couple of years really that I had to make that decision. Was this my person I wanted to have children with?
Hmm.
And then when he got to 40, like, it had played in my mind back and forth lots of times. And I think I kind of got to the decision where I was like, you know what, like, I'm really happy. Like, his kids were just like my kids. Like, the way they
Yeah.
treated me, we had this really special relationship. They
Hmm.
often would come to me before they would come to him. Like, they really made me feel like the mum in our house. Like, it
Yeah.
was really, I had a really beautiful relationship. And I was like, you know what, I don't think I need to have children. Like, I genuinely feel like this is okay. Like, I'm genuinely
Yes.
okay with this situation. And so I had said that to him, and he was like, okay, cool, yep, no worries. So that was fine. And it was kind of end of discussion. We
Yeah.
never really talked about it after that. And then a couple of years went by, and then I started to have some, like, crazy growth within my business. He changed his work. Like, there's a lot of dynamics that shifted in our relationship. And now looking back, I can see that I definitely raised more into my masculine. And
Mm-hmm.
because I raised more into my masculine, it made him drop more into his femininity. And we ended up kind of like switching roles.
Yeah.
And as a result, I didn't feel safe
No.
anymore
Yep.
because I felt like I was bringing so much to the table. And because of the dynamics that was created between us,
Mm-hmm.
subconsciously it really impacted his ego and it really
Mm-hmm.
impacted him as a man, and I think it emasculated him quite a
Yep.
lot, and he didn't know how to deal with that, and he didn't have the awareness, neither did I at that time, the awareness to understand what our dynamics was creating. And so
Yes.
as a result, drugs and alcohol started to kick in, and
Yeah.
he was very started to be like unpredictable, and
Yes.
I wouldn't know when he would come home, and like,
Yeah.
so all of that was creating this uncertainty and a place for me that didn't feel safe anymore.
Yes.
And so because it didn't feel safe, then I raised even more into my masculine. And so
Yes.
I think that that also played a big part into why I didn't want to have a child with him as well, because I was like, now this actually doesn't feel safe.
Yeah.
And then when I had the thought about this is not working, and we went through 12 months worth of couples counseling, and we did all
Mm-hmm.
of this stuff to try and mend it. But I think by that stage, I was so emotionally checked out. I was
Yeah.
so physically exhausted, and mentally, I just didn't have the capacity anymore. Like I
Yeah.
just couldn't do it. I just needed to find some fucking peace in myself.
Yes. Yes.
And so there was also a part of me that was like, maybe I do want to have a child. And I was like, have I been telling myself for the last few years that I don't want to have a child because I know that it's not open for discussion with him.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, I feel like I need to sit with this. And so that was also another reason for leaving, because I was like, maybe I do want to have a child. And he was very adamant that that was like no longer open for negotiation.
Mm-hmm.
So after I left, I went on this like beautiful 12-month self-healing journey of just this
Yeah.
solo journey. And I really sat with that question, like, what do I want? And that was where I was like, no, I don't actually believe I do want a child, because
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to make the sacrifices.
Yes.
I whether that's with my body, or whether that's the sacrifices that you have to make with my career, like. And
Mm-hmm.
I know that people that are doing business and stuff will say to you, like, you don't have to, but your life does change. Like, your
Yeah.
life does
Of course.
change. It can't not. You can't bring in a baby into the world and not have your life be different. Like,
Yeah.
it's
You
going to
want to
be
be a good
different.
mother. Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't think I'm prepared for that. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want my life to be different. I love the fact that I can jump on a plane and go whenever I want. I love the fact
Yeah.
that my money is my money, and I don't have to be like, oh, like, instead of me buying the beautiful $300 set of bikinis, I'm just going to buy the $10 one, because like that's all I can afford, and
Yeah.
I would put the money into the children. I've lived that life. I did that with stepchildren. I didn't buy the $300 bathers because I bought the $10 one so I could buy them something.
Yeah.
So, like, I just am not prepared to, like, I love being able to just go out for dinner with a girlfriend. I love to be able to jump on a phone call and have a conversation without a kid, like, being at me, like, interrupting my conversation. Like, like, exactly. Like, it's funny how they, like, always want to have a fucking conversation with you as soon as you get on the
Yeah.
phone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, I feel like, for me, like, that's been a big part of my journey and how I've got to that decision of like why I don't believe that I want to have children right now. Like, I really
Yes.
enjoy this freedom. I really enjoy the space and that I've got in my life. And I still go back and forth, like, in my mind,
Yeah.
like, and I think a big part, we were talking about this yesterday, I think a big part is that society definition. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, of, but you're a woman, and
Mm-hmm.
like that's your sole purpose to be here on this earth, is to
Yes.
to create children, right?
Yeah.
Procreate, like that's
Yeah.
what you're here for.
Yeah.
And so I have to really distinguish with that as well, of like, is this mine, or is this like society? And I think what we were sharing yesterday, like, it's natural for us to have that confusion around it, because this
Yeah.
is ancestral. Like,
Exactly.
this goes way, way deep.
Yeah. Beyond. Yeah, it's in our blood. Seriously. I agree. I completely agree. And I was going to say something as well about societal pressure. No, it's gone.
Scott? Okay.
Yep.
Anything else that you want to add on that, or you want me to? I can keep talking, and maybe it might come through.
Yeah, yeah. Just keep going, and I'll jump in.
Okay. Yeah. So I think with the society pressure. I remember, I think I was sharing this with you yesterday. It's like, God forbid that a woman actually knows what she wants, right?
Yeah,
I remember when I owned my salon, and I was a stepmom, and I remember clients saying to me like, "Oh, when are you going to have a baby?" And like at that stage, I decided I didn't want to have one, and I was like, "Oh no, like I'm not." And they're like, what do you mean you're not? And I'm like, I'm not. I'm really happy with like the two kids that I've got. Oh yeah, but like don't be ridiculous. Like you're of course you're going to want to have a child.
yeah,
Like you're a woman. Like that's your natural instinct. Of course you
yeah,
want to have a child. And I'm
yeah,
like, no, like I'm really happy and content. Like I don't
yeah,
feel like I'm longing for anything. I don't feel like anything's missing in my life. Like
yeah,
I think I'm okay.
yeah.
Oh, it's so different when you have your own children, though. You really should have your own children. Like that's such a gift. And I'm like,
Yeah,
yes, it probably is,
yeah,
but also like, I don't want to. Like, and I
yeah,
reckon sometimes I would have that same conversation like 3 or 4 times with the same person, and they were still like not listen to me. And they're like, oh no, but of course you would. Or
yeah,
I also hear from clients, like my clients that are women in business, and they tell me their stories that their clients say to them as well, and they're like, oh, so I guess you're going to sell the salon now that you're going to have a baby. And like my clients are like, no, like,
yeah,
oh, but if you're going to be like a good mom, like you need to like not have your business.
yeah,
And it's like, who decides that you
yeah.
are a good mom just because you don't have a business? Like your
Exactly.
business can actually still provide you the lifestyle that you want while you have a child. Like
Yeah,
that's totally possible. So
yeah,
it's so interesting hearing other people's projections,
yeah,
and like just how other people view what we have to do as
yes,
women
yes,
on. And it's very like cookie cutter, right? It's like a one box, it's like a one shoe fits all.
yep,
We should all do that. And I truly don't believe that we all came down to this earth to be mothers. Like,
exactly,
and I think we be mothers in other ways. Like,
exactly.
we're such nurturing human beings. Like, I
Hmm.
feel like in some respects, like I am a mother in the sense of like my containers that I create, like I create a very safe, sacred space. My women are very vulnerable. And so like
Yeah,
that's a mothering, nurturing
yeah,
ability without me actually physically giving birth. And I
yeah.
think that we need to broaden our idea of what mothering looks like.
I completely agree. I've met a lot of people who don't have children, and it's not that they're not maternal, it's just that everybody is their child. They're a mother of the world. Do you know? Like every
Yes.
single
Yeah.
human they see, they're their mother. They're mothers to people who didn't have mothers, they're mothers to the earth, they're mothers to anything. And they have the biggest hearts, a lot of the time. Like
Yeah.
my boss, Meta, she hasn't been able to have children, but I see her as a mother to all. She is like this beautiful bright light of being able to bring everyone under her wing and make everybody feel safe. It doesn't matter the age, what walk of life, it doesn't matter. And she's just everybody's mother, and that is so beautiful to witness and to see. And I have had that thought too. Yeah, that
Yeah.
you can still be a mother without being a mother to your own child. You can still
Yeah.
connect to your womb. You can still be strong. You can still be that mama bear energy without having to have had a child.
Mm.
And
As Go on.
you go, if it's
I
something
was,
to do with if it's
yeah,
to
I was just gonna say something else that's just come through as you were talking about that is like we are actually all our own mothers.
Yes.
because we're all like walking around with our own inner child that didn't get their needs met from their childhood. And so, you know, if you're on this conscious
Yes.
path, you are
Yes.
actually already a mother, because you're mothering your own little girl or your own little boy inside of you and giving them everything that they didn't have. So
Exactly.
like essentially, like we are already mothers, we're our own mothers.
Yes, that is so true.
Yeah,
Constantly reparenting myself, you know, you're just like, no,
same.
no, no, saying the new things, creating the new neural pathways, and just, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
doing that. It's really important. And another thing, I don't like to ruminate on fear, but one thing that does strike a little bit of fear within me is the way that the world is going as well. You know, this was
Mm-hmm.
also a thing that was on my mind about if you believe in global warming, if you don't, that's fine. Or,
Mm-hmm.
you know, just the government and the food, the
Mm-hmm.
poison in the food, the water being contaminated. And it's like, I want to give my child, if I was going to have one, a pure, clean earth. You know, it's their right to have, you know, and to bring a baby into known poison, I feel a little bit like worried on that as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I did speak with my grandma about this, you know, and my grandma actually gave me a wise piece of advice. She was like, Claire, the world's always been ending. We've always been told the world's ending. The world was always going to end, and you just have to keep going, and it never does. And I was just like, yeah, you know,
Okay.
she's 70 something now, you know, and her world was ending back in the day. They were like, oh, all of these things were going to
Mm.
happen, and it's just a fear tactic. And I think, you know, the true test of our soul is to get through all of these distractions while staying true to yourself. And so if you can't really focus on the fear, but it's hard when it's like on everything, like global warming, the world's ending. It's like, oh my gosh, just like get away from
Mm.
me. My world is not ending.
Yeah, yes, 100%. I think the whole fear thing is definitely something to talk about, because it's
Yeah,
real.
yeah,
And I 100% agree with you. Like, would I want to bring a child into this world right now? Like, I don't know. There's a lot of the way that society, come back to society, air
yeah.
quotation marks, the way that society deems to raise a child is actually against like my beliefs. Like,
Totally.
I don't believe in the schooling system. Like, I
No,
think the schooling system is designed to fucking make you fail. Like,
I,
honestly, at life, it teaches you nothing about being an adult. Like, honestly, I don't, reading and writing is probably the only two things that I use in my adult life. Like,
seriously,
that's it.
it just teaches
And
you to sit down, be quiet, follow the rules, don't have ideas. You're wrong. You can't answer this question, so you're dumb.
mhm,
And you're just like, yep.
mhm.
Makes little blind
Robots.
people. Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. There's no room for play or creativity
No,
or like any of that. There's no like tapping into like, yeah, like what feels good for you. And I actually have some really, really beautiful conscious sisters
mm-hmm.
that are mothers, and they have chosen to go down that path, and they don't put their kids into mainstream schooling.
Yeah.
And like, I didn't even know this was a thing. And so
Mm-hmm.
I want to share this in case there's someone listening to this episode and they're like, oh, I didn't know that was a thing either. But there is different like schools out there. So one of my girlfriends in California, she goes to what's called nature school. And
Yes.
so they literally, like, the kids are literally in nature all day. They're
Mm-hmm.
like, they're like playing with, they're picking up sticks, they're collecting things. And oh my gosh, like this little girl is just so creative. She's an only child too. And to see her ability to come up with ideas and to
Yeah.
play and to not rely on a fucking iPad or a fucking
Yeah.
TV. Like, she like rarely does any of that, because
Yeah.
she's been taught from a young age how to like just be in nature. And you know, like, her mum's also very much like a very spiritual being as well, and she's also in nature a lot. She
Yes.
hosts mushroom ceremonies and things
Yes.
like that as well. So I feel like, you know, I'm so happy for that generation to already be changing for her and her lineage as
Yeah.
well. But yeah, like, I didn't even know that that was a thing, that there was like, you know, different
Yeah.
schools. I know that over COVID, I feel like a lot of parents use that as an opportunity to start homeschooling,
Yeah.
because they didn't really like the way that the system was actually going. And
Yeah.
you know, I know a lot of people talk about COVID being a negative, but I actually see a lot of positives that came out of COVID, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, it made a lot of people reevaluate their life, it made them reevaluate their career, their job, it made them reevaluate how much time they, you know, are spending at work and not doing the things that they love doing.
Yeah.
Made people really connect back as a family unit as well.
Yeah.
Like, I truly believe there was a lot of beautiful gifts that came out of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm excited to see that there is starting to have some new schooling systems come in that
Yeah.
actually can help this next like generation coming through
Yeah.
to really connect back in with nature and just being more creative with Mama Earth and
Yes.
using like life skills. Like, I think it's really, really important. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, they have a few, they're called bush schools here in Australia, and they have some in Mullumbimby and out in those cool areas. And I did hear a study the other day, it was done in America, but they had a bunch of, I think it was 20 kids, and they tested them to be geniuses, and it was something crazy that they all had this strain of genius. Maybe 90% of them had a strain of genius in them, and then they brought them back 5 years later, and then it was only 70%, and then they brought them back again, and then there was only, by the end, when they were adults, only 2% of the children still had that genius strand when they had it at the beginning, but it got beat out of them at school. So yeah,
Wow.
it actually was it's a study, I can't remember it, but yeah, they proved
Yeah.
it,
Wow.
that you do get it beaten out of you at school. So when I do have kids, they will definitely be bush schooled, or there's even something called unschooling, which you don't teach your kids anything, but they ask you questions, and when they ask you the questions, you teach them the questions that they ask you.
Right.
Obviously, you would teach them, English and writing and maths and all of those really basic things that you need to know, but other than that, everything else is just what they wanted to learn. And then they go into this area of genius because that's what sparked their inspiration, and then you let them on that path, and then they become that.
Yeah, which that makes so much sense because, you know, like when I look at it from like a coaching perspective, my clients always have the biggest breakthroughs when they ask the question, and then when I ask another question back, right, and then they get thinking
Yes.
as well. So it's like the breakthrough actually, like, they actually can figure it out a lot themselves. So
Yep.
I think you're more likely to listen as
Yep.
well if you're asking the question because you genuinely care, as opposed to being talked at
Yes.
and told like this is important, you need to know this. It's like
Yep.
that can kind of go through one ear and out the other. Whereas if a child's actually coming to you and
Yes.
asking the question, they genuinely want to know the answer.
Exactly. And then I feel like the more that you get excited about learning, if it's brought in that gentle way, it's not to say that you'll never learn about history and all these other things that you would normally get taught at school, but you'll just go to those things when you're interested in them. And because you don't have anything against learning, because I know when I went to school, I hated maths. It's like, I hate maths, I can't do it, I'm bad at it, I'm shit, I'm bad. But, that was just because I hated what we were doing and sitting there and being forced to like listen to this thing, and it didn't have an answer as to why that was the answer. It was like, you just have to remember that. And I'm like, I get it. But, when you have fun and it actually is exciting, then you're going to actually want to sit there and listen and learn and take it in. And yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I 100% agree with you. Yeah, I think the school system has a lot to answer for. Like, we're not taught any money skills. Like, why the fuck do we have algebra in our system? Like, the percentage of people that would use algebra in a career is very, very minute. Like,
exactly.
Very, very minute.
And if you want to go be an
that,
then go
exactly.
You better learn.
Exactly.
I don't need to know A plus B equals C squared. Why? Why?
Exactly. Yes, I 100% agree with you. Yeah. That unit would have been much better taught, like, how do you do taxes, or how do you manage your money? Like, that would be a much better topic in maths than fucking algebra.
Yes, exactly. Or creating a business, or like doing all the things. Imagine that. I saw a kid actually doing at school, it must be some kind of an unschooling program, because their whole class bought an Airbnb, and then they were running the Airbnb as a business to teach the kids how to actually learn those skills, and they were
Wow.
doing everything that they had to do in regards to the Airbnb, like hiring people to clean it and doing all these things, because they're real life skills that people need to actually make money.
Yeah.
Imagine coming out of
Wow.
school and knowing how to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Incredible.
Like, hello, setting yourself up. Like,
Exactly. Instantly,
yeah.
it would just be set forever. But they don't want that.
No, no,
No.
no. That changes the world and the dynamics, and they
Yes.
lose power. They lose power
Yes.
then.
Out of control.
Yeah. Yes. Oh my gosh, so good. I feel like we could like talk about that. We like could go into so many different topics and ways. But it's all relatable, right? Like it's
Yeah,
all relatable.
exactly.
So let's bring it back to this, like women having babies and women in business and things like that. So how do you feel with the society and like having a baby for yourself?
So I feel like like I said, I have the devil and the angel on my shoulder, and I've got one side that goes, you should do this, you're going to miss out, it's your birthright, like maybe it will be magical, maybe it will be good, maybe you will love it, maybe it won't be stressful, maybe it'll be okay. And then the other half of me goes, but what about your mental health? What about intrusive thoughts? What about your OCD? What about money? What about financial? What about, support? All of these things. And so it's very like, it's very even and very 50-50 for me. And a lot of people give me the advice of like, you'll never be ready. You'll never be ready. You just have to do it. And then you just like sink or swim. And I'm like, it's not in me. I don't sink or swim. I just swim, and like I need to make sure I can swim with the baby under my arm, because I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And also money and the way the world's going. So I would say the pressure for me, I try not to listen to what people say, but it is so ingrained that it's impossible to not have that, you need to have a baby to be happy or fulfilled, or it's selfish if you don't, is what I hear a lot, is like you're selfish, or that's a selfish choice. So I feel the guilt as well of that. Yeah. And then I also have my partner who really wants kids as well. So that's also a whole nother thing where we've talked about it, and I've said, yes, I would do it, but I have conditions. It's not just like I'm not a sink or swim person. So it's like, I've got conditions first. I have to feel safe. I have to, have a lot of things in place before, and I'm nowhere near that right now. So it's not even on the cards at the moment. And I've had some friends recently who have just had some babies, and they're flourishing and they're loving it, and that's beautiful for them, and I'm really, really happy for them. And I don't want to hold it. I don't want to hold it. They're like, oh, let's go see the babies, and I'm like, I will one day when I can.
I hear you with that. I used to. I definitely used to, but I think I said this to you yesterday. I think my deep longing for a baby was probably coming from a toxic place. Like when I think about it, like really wanting to have a child, I thought that it was going to give me some kind of fulfillment, some kind of like satisfaction, some kind of like, oh, that's the hole in my heart that I've been needing to fill.
Yes, that's what I've been missing. Or, is that a selfish reason to have a baby, to fill the hole in your heart? Like I think what you mentioned yesterday, it all comes from within. It's a spiritual, we're on a spiritual place. So we have to make ourselves feel okay first before we bring something in. We can't just like use a baby as a Band-Aid to be like, oh, now my heart's full, because what if that doesn't work and then it ends up the opposite way?
Exactly. Yeah. Yes, for sure.
Yeah. And I don't think this would ever be me, but you hear crazy, well, I definitely know this would not be me, but you hear crazy stories where people like throw their babies away because they're like, I just don't want to do it, or they like leave their baby on the step and it's just too much. And how do you know that won't be you? I don't know. I feel like I'm so like,
I guess you don't. I guess you don't know. Like, sleepless nights, like your actual like DNA structure is like changed, like your hormones have completely changed. Like, so you literally are, I know we talk about maiden to mother, right? Like,
Yeah.
yes, you are going from maiden to mother, but like physically, DNA, hormonally, like everything is completely different. Like, you are a different woman,
Yeah.
a completely different woman. So
Yeah. You don't
yeah,
sleep
you
for
don't
5 years.
know.
Yeah.
Literally, yeah,
Seriously.
exactly.
Yeah. Drained and
Yeah.
you don't eat properly because you're like, you know, it's just a whole thing. It's a whole thing. And you see some mothers when they um, have had kids and they just like shrink up and they just turn to
Mm,
like nothing and they're just like empty shells of human beings.
yeah.
And I think that's just because of lack of support, to be honest. You know, it's all
Mm.
about support. If you had support, it would be easier. But yeah,
Yeah, not everyone has access to that
no,
though.
no,
Not everyone has family around them. Not everyone can afford to pay a nanny,
exactly.
to be living with them. Like there's lots of factors that definitely go into that.
Absolutely. Yeah. In regards to society, yeah, I just feel it's just very 50-50 for me, personally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. That's why I was
Yeah.
asking you the questions last night to get some clarity when I was like, do you think you'll ever
Mm.
regret it? You know, if you see that connection, do you wish you had that connection? Or is that like something you can find from within kind of? Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do think that it is definitely something that, like, I've been on this journey now for, like, I mean, I started it before I left Troy. So I left Troy in 2021.
Yep.
So I started it probably in 2000 and probably 17, but went really like really went in and like was like really looked at all my childhood trauma and
Mm.
really like went
Yeah.
deep. I would say from 2021.
Yeah.
I think when I turned 30 is when which we've talked about this, it's like your Saturn return. And so um, at the time I didn't understand it, but looking like doing all the trainings and the education and all of the stuff that I've done now, I now understand what was happening when I turned 30, and it was my Saturn return. And I think that was when I really started to like question
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
And I really was like, what what is this life? Like, what even is this life?
Exactly.
Because according to society, I ticked all the boxes, and I think I said this to you yesterday. Like,
Yep.
I ticked all of the fucking boxes that society deems are going to make you happy. I had like 86 grand cash sitting in my bank account.
Yep.
Plus the business was still like turning over money. I had the white picket house. We'd had a house. We had the family. We were going on multiple overseas holiday that the salon was paying for. We just renovated. We just built a brand new office for me. I had the office was like three components. I had a whole gym and sauna set up, like that I could work out from home and have a
Yeah.
sauna. And then I had my office space, and it was just like I had a brand new car. Like, I
Yeah.
had everything that you could possibly ever dream of, and yet I felt so fucking empty.
Yes. Yes.
And that was when I turned 30 as well, and I was like, I don't get what it's for. And I remember sitting with my mentor. I'm getting emotional. Sitting with my mentor at her house, and we were like mapping out like the next 12 months.
Yes.
And at that stage, so I'd already left Troy, and at that stage, we were planning on like me buying an apartment in Sunny
Mhm.
Coast. So I wanted a penthouse. That was what I wanted. So we worked it out, and it was like, going to be like 1.2 million or whatever. And
Mhm.
we worked out the money, and we reverse engineered it. And we worked out how many hours I would need to do and how many clients I would need to work with and all of that. And she was like, how does that feel? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, okay, well, you don't seem very excited by it. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to work that hard. Like, I had to work like, quite
Yeah.
hard and be working with quite a lot of clients to be able to like purchase a $1.2 million apartment. And she was like, well, then if you're not prepared to do the work, then it's not something that you really want. Like, that's not
Mhm.
really your goal.
Mhm.
And I remember saying to her, I just don't get it. I don't get it. And she's like, what do you mean you don't get it? And I was like, I just like, what's the point?
Yeah.
Like, what is the point? And she's
Yeah.
like, what do you mean? And I'm like, what's the point of earning all the money?
Mm.
Like, I had more money that I could poke a stick at. I didn't even know what to do with this fucking money.
Mhm.
And my life fell apart. My relationship fell apart.
Yeah.
and I wasn't happy.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't understand why we are striving for something that just doesn't give us the satisfaction. Like,
Yeah, because we were
this is
lied to.
crazy. Exactly. Yeah,
This will
exactly.
make you happy. All of these external things. Once you
Yeah,
got the car, but when you get the house, you'll be happy. Okay, you got the house, but when you have $100,000, then you'll be happy. Oh, you got the
exactly.
$100,000. Now, when you go on holidays, you'll be happy. But then you just
Yeah.
escape from your life. Yeah,
Hmm.
it just doesn't make sense. I totally agree with you. I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah, and so like that's why my work is so important, because like I'm all about living a big fucking life. I mean, if you've been on my journey,
Yeah,
you'll know. Like I'm all about living a big life, and I am all about like making more money, right?
yeah,
But like let's heal yourself along the way, so
exactly.
that when you do reach your milestones, you actually feel the fucking
Yeah,
fulfillment inside of yourself. And
exactly.
you're not like you're not chasing the milestone hoping that the milestone is what's going to bring the happiness. You
No,
actually have the happiness, and then the milestone comes.
that's the key. That's it.
Yeah,
100%.
exactly.
That is exactly, I totally agree with you.
Mm,
People think, okay, I'll do this to be happy, but you've got to be happy first. Otherwise, you
yeah.
won't ever get fulfillment in anything, because no, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like.
Yes.
And going back to the child thing, you mentioned something
Mm,
about trauma, and
mm-hmm.
I was thinking, I don't think a lot of people get out of this life without experiencing some kind of a trauma, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you may
Mm-hmm.
experience it as a kid, or you may experience it as an adult. But if I experienced it as a kid, and I hated being a kid. I hated being alive, to be honest, when I was a kid. It was absolutely horrible, horrible to be alive. And my mum was amazing. It was nothing
Mm,
that she could have done any better. It was all in my own head, and not knowing how to
mm-hmm.
communicate what was happening inside of me as a child, thinking like, oh my God, I'm crazy. Because then I
Mm.
got OCD from being about 6 years old. And
Okay.
I don't know how to explain that to my mum. I don't know
Yeah.
what that means, and I don't know that everybody else's brain doesn't work like that. So I'll
Yeah,
just
of
have
course.
like repetitive, like crazy things. And so I also have a fear as well of bringing a child into the world and raising it from trauma. Personally, like I'm doing my own
Mm-hmm.
journey right now. I'm trying to heal the best that I can, which is it's working well, but there's always still things. But
Mm.
like just you can't help it, but I just pray that I could have a kid and not traumatize it somehow. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm.
my mom was so good. My mom did everything perfectly right, and I still was fucked up. So it's like, how can
Uh-huh.
I possibly like prevent this from happening to my child? And I get it's their journey and it makes them who they are, but I just don't want
Yeah.
anyone to suffer. Like, you know.
But I think like I hear you, and
Yeah,
I understand what you're saying,
yeah,
but I think that that's part of the human experience,
yeah.
right? Like
But I
that
don't
is
like that.
part it's part of the human experience, and like that's you denying that child of actually like going through, like, you have to remember, right, that that child signed the contract before it even came down, right? Like that
That,
child just didn't randomly pick you. That child was part of your soul mission,
yeah,
right? Part of that journey. So
yeah,
that child chose you
yeah,
to come through, to be birthed, to help you learn about yourself, to help you um, teach them, right? Like
yeah,
I truly believe that
yeah,
all of the babies that are birthed into the world have chosen their families,
yes,
right? And so
yes.
I think that you saying that you don't want to
Fuck
create
it
trauma,
up.
I mean, none of us do, but we're so imperfect that
Yeah,
it's impossible to not create, for the child to not have some kind of trauma.
yeah,
But the fact, I think, is here that is really important and is a key point to this, is that you're already so conscious,
yeah.
right? Like you already are so conscious of it, that I
Mm-hmm.
think that if you were to decide to have a child, you're already so many more steps in front of somebody that's not awakened.
True. Yeah, I would do my best.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. 100% you
Yeah,
would. Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
you'd be so much more aware of, like the stuff that you're bringing to the table
Mm, yeah,
versus, someone like, I think just even the fact that you're aware of that is like already so many more steps in front of someone that isn't awoke
Mm-hmm.
yet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Of course. If you
Yay.
decide to have a child.
Who knows? We'll see how the struggles, but yeah, definitely not against it, not for it. I'm just like totally in the middle, and I think that's why this
Yeah.
conversation is so healing and so good to have, because
Yeah.
there's no pressure on either side. What's right, what's wrong is so different for everybody, and you know what's right for
Yes.
you, and I know what's right for me. So
And
we can.
I think that's a beautiful way to kind of like wrap up this conversation, is like really being really trusting that you do know what's right for you.
Yes.
And also the other piece of this puzzle that I want to touch on as well is, can we as women start honoring other women's choices?
Yes. Absolutely.
Like, can we start doing that? Like, I'm not gonna put you down or ask you a million questions if you've chosen to have a child. I trust that you are a capable, intuitive woman that has done what's right for you.
Yes.
And I'd like to have that same respect shown back.
Absolutely. I
I
completely.
would, if I was to say that I don't want to have children, I would really appreciate if you could say, amazing.
Yeah. Well
I'm
done.
happy. I'm happy for you.
Proud
Like,
of.
do we have to like tear each other down
Yeah.
because we want different lives? Like, or can we actually just say, hey, this is your life, this is your path, and like maybe that was part of my soul contract. Like maybe my soul contract was to not actually birth anything into this world. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I've had the opportunity twice, and I've had 2 abortions, and I've chosen to not go down that path. And I truly believe that those abortions were not necessarily from a point of like giving birth, but I think it was from a healing perspective. Like, I needed to learn a hell of a lot about myself. I
Yeah.
needed to learn how to speak my truth. Like, there
Mm-hmm.
was so much in that whole situation. But I truly do. I truly believe that those babies came into my body for that purpose. Like, and that's my truth. Somebody
Yes.
else might think very different to that, and that's okay because that's their truth. And I think that this is something that we also have to be really mindful of, is that if you're going to stick to your truth,
Mm-hmm.
then you also have to remember that there's more than one truth.
Exactly. There's
And
a
so
hundred.
somebody else's truth, exactly, somebody
Yeah.
else's truth is also their truth, and
Yeah.
that's okay.
And that's the truth for them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
I agree.
So yeah, I think I just wanted to like touch on that. Like,
Yeah.
we know what's right for us, and so
Yes.
I think that in 2024 we can actually really start to just honor and respect
Yeah.
other women's choices for
Exactly.
what they choose to do with their body. Whether that is being a stripper, whether that's, prostituting down on the corner, like whatever it is, like if you're doing it and it makes you happy, that's all that should matter.
Exactly. Power to you. Honor that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. I agree completely.
Yeah. Oh, so beautiful. Oh my gosh. Is there anything that you want to add or that's on your heart before we wrap up this conversation?
I just want to say, you know what's right for you, and yeah, don't let other people tell you how to live your life and how to feel. And it's easier said than done, but
Yeah.
you know what's right, and you know what you're capable of and what you want to do with your life. And you only get one life, and this life is very sacred and very important, and you can't make the wrong choice, because whatever was meant to be will be, and it was already written. So, yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Oh, I'm not even going to like add anything to that. I think that was just beautiful. So thank you for
Thank you.
having this beautiful conversation with me today. I think, yeah, it was, I just knew in my heart after our conversation that we had yesterday that this needed to be an episode, because I feel like more women need to not necessarily be given permission, because I really would like to hope that women can give themselves that permission, but
Mhm.
sometimes these conversations is enough to help give them that permission to just live their
Yeah.
life the way that they want to live it. So
Yeah.
I really, really appreciate you coming on and being super vulnerable and sharing, like, a lot about what's happening for you with your mental health and,
Mhm.
like where you're at and your stance on it. That takes a lot of courage. And I always say, like, honestly, like everyone says to me, what's the key success to like just living the big life. And honestly, like, it comes down to courage, is
Yep.
really what it truly comes down to. So,
Yep.
you know, the more that you have the courage to have the hard conversations, to
Yeah.
talk about the things that nobody talks about, to be vulnerable and to share like those topics,
Mm-hmm.
like that's really what sets you free.
I,
It's not the money, it's not the baby, it's the courage to be vulnerable and to speak your truth. Yeah.
I love
So
it.
thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much for having
you.
this beautiful conversation with me. I love you dearly and I miss you so much. And we will no doubt check back in and have another episode brewing for sure.
Thank you so much, Queen. I love you. And thank you, everybody, for listening.
If you have enjoyed today's episode, I would love to hear from you. If you have had a beautiful takeaway or a beautiful something that you want to share with Claire, her Instagram handle will be in the show notes. So go and have a look there. You can send her a message if something's landed. We're really building a community over here. So please go and say hello. We would love to hear from you. If you are interested in doing any kind of work with myself, you will find all of the options in the show notes. So whether you're a salon owner or you're looking at private mentorship, they're my main two things that I've got opened at the moment. So the Evolve container is a 12-month container, which is very much what we just talked about today. This beautiful like healing and just self-discovery and letting go of society's shackles of who you are supposed to be as a woman and a business leader in this lifetime as a salon owner. And then there's also private mentorship as well, which is application and interview process. So if you feel the call to maybe reach out and you just want to have a conversation about, is there something that I can support you in? I would love to hear from you. If you have an important topic as well that you would love to like jump on this podcast and share, like that's really the theme for this new season and this new branding is really about creating community. And so I want to give you that chance to have this space for your voice to be heard. I think it's so powerful for us women to really collectively come together. So if there's a topic that you're like, oh, this is really like big on my heart and I feel like more women need to hear this, please let me know. Come and shoot me a DM on Instagram. Let me know what the topic is that you want to talk about and let's get you on and let's have a beautiful open discussion about it so that we can all feel more seen in this world where we feel very alone sometimes. So thank you, babe, for tuning on in. I love you so much, and I will see you real soon.